Hi, and welcome to Lesson 2 in my series of fundamentals for electric blues guitar, old school style. And when I say old school, I mean recordings from the 50s and the 60s, guitar players from those eras. And in the second lesson, what I'm trying to do is teach you just the beginning stuff. If you're getting started playing this kind of music, one of the first things you need to do is play some rhythms and be able to play behind other people and play through a whole song, instead of just playing bits and pieces of things. A lot of guys make that mistake and never really learn how to play. And so in this lesson, last lesson we did what I call double string shuffles or bass rhythms, double string bass rhythms, shuffle rhythms. And in this lesson we're going to look at a huge variety of single string rhythms. And we'll start out with what I call a boogie woogie rhythm, which is one of the basics that you should learn. And I remember starting to learn guitar when I was like 17 and learning how to play Jailhouse Rock by Elvis and learning that boogie woogie rhythm. And then later when I got into blues, I used that quite a bit. And there's a couple different ways you can play this. We'll start out in the key of E. So again, our first position, E chord, played down here. Should know that one. The boogie rhythm that I'm going to show you is real simple. It goes like this. There, but that's the basics. So to play that, we're doing single strings and playing over the 1 or the E. We're starting with an open 6th string, which is an E string. Now we're going to the 4th fret of the 6th string, and then the 2nd fret of the 5th string, and then the 4th fret of the 5th string. So the whole first part. And then we're going to slide to the 5th fret of the 5th string back to the 4th string, and we just kind of backtrack, except when we get to the 1 of the beat we're going to be hitting the open 6th string again. That's how we start off on each beat. And then we move everything over to the 5th string open. Now we're playing on the 4th string. Play over the 5 or the B in this case. I'm starting right here on the 2nd fret of the 5th string. Then I'm going to the 5th, 6th frets of the 5th string. And I'm not playing all the way through, so I could do this. But since I'm going to go to the 4, I'm going to do this. So this is the 4th fret of the 4th string to the 6th fret, and back to the 4th string. So the whole thing. And there, when I play over the 4, I'm also shortening it a little bit. Instead of doing this, that's not going to fit. So instead I'm shortening it. So the 5, open 5 for over the A. This time I'm going to the 4th fret of the 5th string, 2nd fret of the 4th string, 4th fret, and back, and then to the 1. Playing a little turnaround. If I don't conclude the turnaround, I just keep going. So I could do it like this. Back into the song. One more time. Like that. Now that's in the key of E. So we can use the open strings. Now if you can't use the open string, another thing you can do, there's a different way to play it. Just like I played on the B here. When I moved it to get that, I call that a walk. You can do that in any key. So let's say we're playing in the key of G. Here's my first position, G bar chord. To play this boogie rhythm, this is something you hear in some of Pee Wee Creighton's playing. There's an instrumental tune called Bounce Pee Wee, which is one of my favorites. And when he's not playing the lead guitar, he's playing some different rhythms, and this is one of them. Just something like this. Now we could use that same approach and play this. And all I'm doing here, so if I'm in G, the 1 is a G on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. And it's the same deal where I'm picking twice. And here I'm going to the 6th and the 7th fret on the 6th string. Then to the 5th fret of the 5th string, 7th fret, 8th fret. And then I'm going to the 7th fret of the 6th string. So it's like this. Then we just move everything over. C. You may have noticed when I played at the beginning, there's a lot of variations you can do. And so instead of playing the full boogie woogie rhythm where I do the slide, I can just shorten it and do something like this. Then just like that. Basically what you're doing is, without the open strings, you're doing the same thing you were doing in the open E with the open, but since we don't have the open, we have to fret that. So we just fret the 1 depending on which chord we're in. So if we're in the key of A, the 1 would be the 6th string at the 5th fret. Just like that. So there is what I call a boogie woogie rhythm, and those are real useful, and you can play those throughout a song, or you can play them during an instrumental break, or you can play them as part of a solo. You can use those in lots of different ways, and the rule is simple. When you're playing an E or an A, you can use the open strings. If you have a capo on the 1st fret, you can also play an F and B flat, I think it is, if you're playing in the A position. But when you're playing in other keys, you just make sure you fret the 1 instead of playing it open, and then you have to move your hand up a little bit. And you can do all kinds of variations with that, with the rhythm. So instead of this, so I showed you this. I also showed you this one. And you can throw in variations. So I could do something like this. Another way you can go play over the 5 is something that you hear in a Guitar Slim's playing and some other players, where he does this over the 5. So he does something like, so if we're playing G, he does this. On the turnaround, I can explain that in just a second. But instead of doing this, which is in D, I'm going to start on the 5th fret on the 6th string. And then I'm going to come down here to the 2nd fret of the 5th string and just walk it. So from this 5th fret of the 6th string, 2nd fret of the 5th string, 3rd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret. So that first part of that lick. Then when we come back the other way, we're going to skip the 4th fret and go right to the 3rd fret. And wind up right where we started before going back to the 1. That little turnaround, I'm just doing. And I'm getting the G, which is there at the 5th fret of the 4th string. And I'm playing a D7th. This is a C7th shape. And that's just one way you could do a turnaround there. Simple one. So the whole thing. So that's a single string boogie woogie rhythm is what I call that. Let's look at some other single string variations. If you listen to the playing of Buddy Guy when he played in the 60s and early 70s with Junior Wells, he would do a lot of these really cool single string rhythms behind Junior Wells. And I'll just show you some various ideas. I have a new video thing I just did on the playing of Buddy Guy behind Junior Wells, and I go through and do a lot of these single string rhythms. But in the key of A, which they like to play in a lot, whoops, shut my guitar off. In the key of A, you could do something like this, like a walking bass rhythm. This is a single string thing. We're playing over the first position, E bar chord or A bar chord, what we call the blues box, which we'll get into when we do the soloing. And you could play a rhythm like this. That's a real simple Buddy Guy-like bass rhythm, single string bass rhythm. All I'm doing here is I'm starting on the 1, which is the 6th string, 5th fret. That's an A. And I'm going to the octave, which is also an A, at the 7th fret of the 4th string. Then I'm going to the 5th fret of the 4th string, right there. And then the 7th fret of the 5th string. 7th fret of the 4th string, 5th fret of the 4th string, 7th fret of the 5th string. So the whole thing. You can throw in these little runs. So on that same basic rhythm, just going back and forth between the 7th fret of the 5th string and the 5th fret of the 4th string. And I play it right after I hit the 4th fret at the 5th fret, or the 4th string at the 5th fret. So let's just stick with the basic rhythm. Then we go to the 4, which is going to be a D. We're playing over the 2nd position D bar chord, your power chord, starting on the 5th fret of the 5th string. Now we're going to the 3rd string, 7th fret, 5th fret. Then for the 5, we're going to the E, playing over the 2nd position E bar chord. Over the E, we just play exactly what we played over the D, going from the 5th string, 3rd string, 7th fret, 9th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret of the 4th string. Whoops. That's over the E, over the D, and then we do this little, which is kind of thing Buddy Guy would do, and I'm just doing this chromatic bass run from the 5th to the 6th to the 7th fret on the 5th string. You also do a little slide from from the 6th to the 7th fret. Or we could play a chord, which is an E7, C7. Move it up where your ring finger is on the 7th fret of the 5th string, which is an E. And that's a little Buddy Guy type single string rhythm, which is kind of neat. A guy I really like to listen to for some of these single string rhythms is a guy named Guitar Gabel. And Guitar Gabel also recorded on Excello Records, the same record company where Slim Harpo recorded. And he had some really cool single string rhythms in some of his songs. There's an instrumental called Walkin' with the Kings, and here's another just example of a single string rhythm that you could use. It goes like this. It's the key of A. I think he plays it in B. Actually it is. The original recording's in B. I've played this song before with bands, and I always play it in A. So let's do it in B. A 7th chord for the turnaround. So all I'm doing here is another variation. So instead of this, we're doing this. So in the key of B, going from the 1, which is the 7th fret of the 6th string, to the octave. Those are both B notes, which is the 9th fret of the 4th string. Then we're going to the 7th fret of the 4th string to the 6th fret. Just once to the 9th fret of the 5th string. So we're playing these notes twice, and then once here and here. Twice. Then to move it to the 4 chord, which is going to be an E, we just move everything over. Then to play the 5, we just go to the 5, which is going to be a, an F sharp. So we're just playing exactly what we were playing over the E. That's another example of a bass rhythm. If you listen to Guitar Gabel's Walkin' with the Kings, he does that. Now another single string rhythm. This is one that I actually got from Charlie Christian, who is a jazz player. I can't remember the name of the tune, but I also heard Pee Wee Crayton do this again in a tune called Bounce Pee Wee. And it's kind of an abbreviated version of that single string boogie woogie rhythm. And instead of doing this, he starts here and plays something like this. And that is another cool little single string rhythm. So what I'm doing, if I'm playing in G, I'm going to the 5, which is the 5th fret of the 5th string, and I'm playing, doing that same walk from the 6th to the 7th frets on the 6th string. But instead of playing it all the way through like this, I'm just going to go back and forth. I'm just going to stay between the walk and the 5th fret of the 5th string. I'm just playing that faster. Now I'm going, I botched it. Now I'm going to the 5th fret of the 4th string. Like that. And that's one you can can move to any key. So if we're playing in A, started on the 5, which is the 7th fret of the 5th string. We're playing in D, started on the 10th, 12th fret of the 5th string. You could play it anywhere you wanted to. So there's another example of what I call a single string bass rhythm. Some other variations. If you want to see some really fancy ones, the Buddy Guy lesson that I do with the single string bass rhythms, he does a tune called Snatch It Back and Hold It, where he does something like this. Where he's playing the staccato picking, which is a lot more difficult. But if you want to see some of those, then go to my lesson on Buddy Guy and Junior Wells and the rhythm part. This lesson is just to introduce you to some simple single string ones. Another one I really like comes from some slower tunes, kind of the New Orleans style. And there was a guy named Smiley Lewis in the 50s who played a tune called Blue Monday, which Fats Domino did as well. I don't know who did it first. I think it may have been Smiley Lewis, I don't know. But in that tune, which he plays in E flat, he does a little walking bass rhythm, something like this. Another one, like kind of a little New Orleans thing. If I'm playing an E flat, like Smiley Lewis's Blue Monday, starting on the 6th fret of the 5th string, going to the 10th fret, and just bouncing back and forth between the 10th fret of the 5th string and the 8th fret of the 4th string. Whoops. Play over the 4, which is A sharp, just starting on the 1, which is the 4th fret of the 6th string, going to the 8th fret of the 6th string, and bouncing back and forth between that and the 6th fret of the 5th string. Whoops. To the 5, we just follow the same rule over the B flat. He does something along those lines. Now another really cool single string rhythm is one that I hear in a song by Guitar Gabel. And this is actually, I'm just going to refer you to that. I do a video lesson on the Licks, Classic Licks series on my menu, on my homepage, and playlist. And on that playlist, if you look under Classic Licks, there's a series on Guitar Gabel, or one lesson, where I go through and show you some of his single string rhythms, which are really pretty cool. Also, if you look at my lessons on Little Walter, my lessons on Sonny Boy Williamson, a lot of these, I will show you some of these real basic single string rhythms. A really good one while we're here, and one more before I go that you can get started with, is from a Sonny Boy Williamson song called Don't Start Me Talking. And this is a real basic one. He's playing in the key of G, and he's starting in the, actually the song starts with this little introduction. One of those typical Chicago blues type things. Then he does this. Really just the boogie woogie rhythm that we did earlier. So if you want to see that, I teach that again on my Classic Licks series. Look for the guitars of Sonny Boy Williamson, and I'll go through there. So playing single string bass rhythms, that is a great way to back up a harmonica player, or to play, you know, the low end. If you got another guitar player playing the fills and the chords, you can play the bass runs. Even if you have a bass player, sometimes you can even double up on some of the bass lines, and it sounds cool. So we looked at the boogie woogie rhythms, we looked at some Buddy Guy, Junior Wells type stuff. I also showed you a lick by Pee Wee Crayton, and one from the playing of Smiley Lewis, little New Orleans thing. So those are some single string bass rhythms, and those are some real basics to get you started. And again, if you want to see more of this kind of thing, go to my Classic Licks lessons and check out some of those. And I do a lot of, pretty much any guitarist that I profile in any kind of depth, I'll go through and show you some of the bass rhythms that they use, single string and double string. So that is the second lesson in my fundamentals for electric blues guitar. When I come back with the next lesson, we'll start looking at lead playing and the blues box and single string stuff. See you then.